Good everyone. I hope you guys have an amazing day. So I'm not going to teach anything today. Instead, I'm going to talk about my first book, which I published. Um, so right now it's available in Kindle version. Right. I'm just working on the paperback stuff version. I need to sort out some couple of issues with Amazon, and after that, it will be good to go. Yeah. So this is available. I'm what I'm showing you is the Australian side. So, and I'll show you the content. It's up to you. If you guys want to, buy it. But I bought most of my experience, working as a, Salesforce developer and architect. I've been in Salesforce space for quite a long time. I mean, if you've been following along my YouTube channel, right, you probably know. Though I've started my YouTube channel back in 2021. Before that, I was not really keen to start anything, right? Because I was thinking whether I should be doing it or whether I shouldn't be doing it. I should have started like in 2016, but hey, it's never too late. All right, so let me show you. I think I've spoken about this before. Um, so this is my name. If you if you have if you haven't known about it for a lot while. This is a table of content, right? So when you look at the table of content, so I have used a different design pattern. A different design pattern in the sense I spoke about, singleton, factory, facade, adapter, proxy, observer, strategy, builder pattern. I also talked about the solar principle. I briefly discussed about invocable apex and also something about platform events and some of the code smells, which I often call it as an apex anti-pattern. Uh, and some of the testing stuff, right? And some of the so-called and social stuff. So this book is going to be useful for someone who is new to even if you're new to Apex, right, you will still get value out of it. But if you're an experienced Apex user, then definitely you'll get value out of it. Now, I have used, like in my recent project, right, one of I'm working on a very huge scale enterprise project for one of the New Zealand biggest government agencies. So it's gonna impact at least that project when it goes live, at least most of the New Zealanders, right? Most of the Kiwis in New Zealand. So the kind of project kind of impact the work I'm doing will be substantial. So I have used facade pattern, builder pattern, factor pattern for this project, and I've extensively used it. Now I get it, right? Most of the time people think, hey, why do we need to use design pattern, right? What value gonna do? It's very complicated, it's not very friendly. The thing is that with the design pattern, yes, it's difficult to implement at the start, but then think about the long-term return of investment. That's all I tell to people, right? Think about the long-term investment, right? You built a stable pattern, then all you have to do if you wanted to, say for instance, you have a factor pattern, right? Let's start with a factor pattern. Factor pattern, right? It's like a factor, right? You have say an interface, and that interface will have a method, and so different classes will implement that method, right? And based on certain condition, you execute that specific class, and that something similar. Um, or I'll give you a very classic example, right? You go to a shop to buy, um, you know, say a cell phone, right? You go to a counter. The job is to service your stuff, right? So service your stuff could be an iPhone, it could be a laptop. So you don't really need to know what's going behind the scene, right? You just you get what you ask for. So I've described in detail all the stuff, but and facade I've used. If you have multiple subsystems, right, you don't really need to worry about it. How you simplify it and then build a pattern, right? So I've used combine this stuff, and I've used it. Like I often get when I interview a tech architects, right? I don't ask questions, right? Hey, explain to me what is batch apex, or what is invocable method. I don't ask those kind of questions because I expect those people to know that. I give them a scenario, right? To talk about, let's say I have an Apex class, right? Let's have our requirement. I wanted to build a solution. I posted this once on LinkedIn. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you will know that questions are posed. This is my favorite question I often ask. We have a requirement. We wanted to build a scalable systems. I wanted to, build we have four common methods, but each one have, like, 16 different process, and other one has different process. Uh, I don't really want to go into details, but uh, there's something similar line, right? I often ask just to check person knowledge about design pattern, and you'll be surprised most of the time many people get it wrong. People come to me and say, "Hey, I got 25 cert, I got 30 sets." That's fantastic. And the problem with that is, right? You have more the certs, the more they expect you. I do get it, right? As a tech architect, you don't really have to code, right? But that being said, at times you do need to code. You need to build a proof of concept. You need to help a developer with the scalable design. Develop if you have a problem, you come up with an architecture, right? I came up with an architecture. Hey, let's go with the facade, factory, and builder pattern together. And I demonstrate a proof of concept, and I build a couple of them on top of it, and a couple of developers who work with me, they built the rest of the stuff, which is pretty cool. And then I've also implemented I've been working on a custom programming language. As you know, that I'm very passionate about compiler design. I did that when I was in MIT, compiler design. I built my own programming language that time for one of the projects. So I know how to build a programming language. It's not a big deal, but you don't really build something which is of no use, right? So I built an internal programming language, especially in Deloitte where I work now, for enhancing the framework I built for platform event, because it was a big requirement. So I thought, okay, I can build some custom scripting language. So I built it. You can control it. You can hook up to any object you want, and you can link up any field you want. You don't have to hard code it. You can control everything using a script. Yeah, the code will read it behind the scene and figure out. So that the scripting engine I built on top of it. I don't really call it as a programming language because you're building top of Apex, but I kind of like I've added formula fields, if-else conditions, loops I've implemented in the script. So I did a lot of things, right? It took me like almost 3 weeks to build it, which is pretty cool. So the reason why I'm telling all this, right? I when I wanted to publish this book, I have one thing in mind, right? I wanted people to write better code. I don't want people to turn up at work and start writing code, spaghetti code. We have a lot of spaghetti code in our system, right? I just don't like it. So I thought, okay, what if I can help people, right? And I do understand that, it has gone through proofreading, right? A couple of, architects like Ben Edwards, he's a CTA, right? He's my boss in Deloitte. So he reviewed the book, and one of my mate, uh, Jimmy, he's a tech architect as well. He did a proofreading. Um, Seems okay. I mean, they said it seems okay. There were a few errors, so I fixed it. Unfortunately, if you find some errors, please do let me know. I will fix it. Right. So my next plan is to release another book in 2024, Apex for admins. But I'm not gonna do Apex for admin just for the sake of it. I wanted to make it more like a comic style, right? With more some diagrams, with some stories, so people can relate to it, right? Because I don't want because the problem I see, right? There are a lot of tutorials out there which talks about, okay, you write Apex this way, these are the data types, these are the loops, but yeah, but if I wanted to implement something, I have to relate to something, right? So, I started programming in C back in the days, right? Uh, as a proper programming language. Though when I was 10, I started with Basic, right? Because I started with that, and but the real programming experience, I would say, right? I started with the C, um, and then I went to C++, which is really good. I still use C++ at times even today, um, and yeah, I programmed in almost like 10, 15 languages so far. So for me, programming comes naturally. It's like talking to another person. So that's one of the reasons why, I thought let's put something out, right? It's just not just another book for the sake of it. Just put something out so people can get some value out of it, right? They can use solar principle. Now you must be wondering, why do I care about solar principle? Think about building a flows, right? Think about writing a code. How does the solar principle fit into that perspective, right? I've used two first principle, single responsibility, open close principle when I was designing a flow, Salesforce flow. So the Salesforce flow is what I built. I mean, I've been building a lot of modular flows. I've been writing a lot of architecture document around that, distributing with the team. Uh, what are the advantage of being a tech architect? Yeah, the reason why I mentioned tech architect because we got functional architects, solution architects. Solution architects often I've seen are functional architects, right? Though there are exception to it. So most of the solution architects, right, those who can't code, right? There are people who can code. They don't really, tell you how to build a pattern in an Apex or in a C++, or they just tell you, okay, this is the requirement. This is how I want the systems to be connected. You can use an auth or you can use other stuff, which is great. Even the tech architects do that. I do that too. But then when the real implementation part, right, I do get involved sometimes because I wanted to see that things are getting built properly, and I often get involved in user acceptance testing as well, right? So yeah, I'm not talking from an enterprise architecture perspective. I'm talking specifically from a tech architect, right? I consider myself as a tech architect. So enterprise, yeah, you can say whatever you want. So yeah, I think you must be thinking, right? This guy too much into talking to sell his book. Yeah, of course I have to sell this book, right? Because I spent time to write it. So I do prefer people to buy it. That's one of the reasons why I'm making video because at the end of the day, right, you create stuff to sell it, right? So I'm not shying away from admitting that truth. I want people to buy it, and if you can't afford it, I would say tell people please buy it, right? And help spread the message, right? I mean, I'm showing Australian. This is Australian side. You can go to United States side or Indian side or French or Italian, whatever, right? It's there in Amazon, right? This is just an Australian currency, right? And book is not too expensive, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I live in New Zealand, right? I buy books at times which cost $80 or $90, right? So for me, 35 Australian bucks is not very expensive. But I mean, you might disagree, but I've seen people, the books cost more than that at times. So I thought this is a valuable price. But yeah, that's, you know, yeah. So yeah, I mean, if you like it, please buy it. And then I'm always open for feedback, right? And because this is how I wanted to improve on the stuff I deliver, right? And yeah, and thanks for listening to me today. And I hope you guys have an amazing Saturday. Adios.